Hello and welcome to Off My Shelves, and in this episode we're going to be looking at the masterpiece that is Absolute Batman Year 1 by David Mazzucchelli and Frank Miller. And yeah, we'll get underway. So Batman Year 1 is pretty much, to be honest, my favourite Batman story really. Now that's a big claim because Batman is my favourite character in comics, and Batman is at his best in this book, I think. But before I get too far into all that, we look at the build and the contents of the Absolute Batman Year 1. Now, unlike a lot of other editions, it comes with two books, not one. The slipcase is super simplistic and straightforward. Year 1 on the back, David Mazzucchelli's artwork of Batman on the front, and then Absolute Batman down the back. Inside, we get two books. Obviously, it was to make the package of the Absolute Edition a bit more worthwhile really, because Batman Year 1 is only 4 issues long, and so it's not the chunkiest story in the world, and so to give it the Absolute Edition they decided to print two separate hardback books really. And so the first one is this one, and the second one is this one. Now the first one has got David Mazzucchelli's wraparound art on the outside cover, and it is a boot. And then the second one is got the covers from issues of the original Batman run, part 1 and part 4 on the front and back. They come with ribbon bookmarks, and the main difference between the two is the colouring. Now the colouring, and actually that's unfair, it's not just the colouring, it's the actual feel. And what I mean by that is this one here has old stock paper, but it has modern colouring that was done many years after the original issues came out. Now obviously this was supervised by David Mazzucchelli and by Frank Miller, and they had a say in the recolouring, and this is how I originally read the book. Now the pages itself are quite clean, the artwork is sublime. I mean, David Mazzucchelli's artwork is so good in this. I mean, the simplicity of it, but then the complexity of it, and how beautiful it is in general is just great. I mean, David Mazzucchelli's artwork has always been one of those things that I come back to time and time again, because he is genuinely one of my favourite artists. Like, so that book is the new colouring, but then you've got the second book, which is sewn binding and everything, but the pages themselves are much more old stock pages like you would get in the original issue, and they are original scans of the original issues, so you can even see the kind of bleed going on back and forth. Now even though you can't really tell too much on the screen, but you can see through the pages, and all of that is really intentional because it's trying to give you the feel of the original issues, but in an oversized format, because obviously the original issues were a normal comic book size, but it's trying to give you that first-hand experience of reading this in oversized in the original issues. But the colouring is so different that it gives an absolute different feel to the book. Like if you look at the page where Gordon is just about to get revenge on his colleague who has done him over, if you look at the comparison between that and the colours, the feel is just totally different on every level. For me, the reason why I bought this Absolute Edition is to have this story in oversized format, as big as I could get it, but also because of this, because this colorization and this style of the book is what I wanted more than anything. I haven't even read this ever, and I've read this 3 times, so that tells you why I went down this route really. But I was lucky that I got it at quite a cheap price as well. They are sewn binding, both of them as well, and the story for the most part is a simplistic, straightforward story where it's looking at the origins of Batman in his first year. So he's training how to be a vigilante crime fighter, but not only that, he's trying to form an idea of how he should look and what he should do, and he kind of devises this idea of, you know, styling himself as a bat. And it's really straightforward. It's all about hunting out the criminals and the organised crime in the town that's strangling the town. There's no costumed villains, there's no Joker, there's no anything. Catwoman is in it, but again she's almost formulating who she is and all that. But there's Roman, Carmine, Falcone and many other of the organised crime families that Bruce Wayne, Batman, is trying to behead, and then Gordon. Now Gordon is the real star of this book, I think. And why Gordon is the star of this book is because this book does a brilliant thing. It starts off with Bruce Wayne coming back from an abroad trip and Lieutenant Gordon coming into the town for the first time to be a police officer. So they both coming in to fight crime, one through the police, one through vigilante activity, and it's telling both of their stories really. And Batman's story is pretty straightforward in terms of, you know, he's trying to formulate a plan, training heavier and harder, designing the Batman suit. But then Gordon's has got much more complexity to it. He's really struggling to fit in with Gotham and with the crimes going on and with the corruption that's rife in the police department. He's struggling on every level, and he's bordering on having affairs and everything. Gordon is really one of the central figures of this whole story really, and it might as well be Gordon Year One, because at times it does tell much more Gordon story than it does Batman story. And yeah, but that's not a bad thing by any stretch of the imagination, because both of the stories come together at different points, and mainly they come together at the end with this big standoff between Gordon and the police department and organised crime and Batman. And the 4 issues go along at a breakneck pace. It's really quick and really fun read on every level, and it's just, yeah, it is what every Batman comic should be, I think. Straightforward, fun, engaging, interesting, well drawn, well paced. It is what a Batman comic should be. A Batman comic shouldn't be like take a year to start and end the story really. And that frustrates me most about modern comic stories really, particularly with Batman stories, is when you start the story now, like literally you have to wait about a year or 2 for a payoff. But back in the day, 4 issues, done. There are different extras in each book. So the covers are before each issue in each book, but in here they show you just the plain artwork, no graphics. But in this book they show you the original graphics, the pricing, the barcodes, all that type of thing. But then the other great thing about these is it includes the original letter pages, which are just fun little time capsules really. At the back of the first volume you get some afterwords and an amazing little afterword really by David Mazzucchelli, who decides to draw his afterword. And yeah, you get wonderful artwork and preparation pages by David Mazzucchelli. He's one of my favourite artists. It's so good. And in the back of this one you get the scripts and the layouts and the pencils of issue 407, which is part 4 of the story. And yeah, it's a great read and a great book. I'm sure one day I'll get around to reading the modern colour again, but for me I'm well stuck on the older colouring of this one for me. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed having a look at Absolute Batman Year One. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.